Hello, hello. How's it going? Um, my mic monitoring is not in my ears. That is disconcerting. Concerning? Disconcerting? Disconcerting. Give me 1 second. We'll turn off and on again. Somewhat frustrating, but we'll live with it. We'll unplug it a little bit and it'll be fine. Because I can hear my own voice when I don't have music in my ears. More CEF? A little bit. Hey, Chris, good to see you. We have at least some progress in trying to get CEF and what's in CEF RS in, I have hair in my hand now, in totally distracted. Cat, hey, you took me out of it. Stop looking at my green screen. If you're gonna say hi, come and say hi. There we go. We'll just distract you all with cats too. All right, so CEF, we pulled in over the past couple streams. We've been talking about CEF, and last stream we pulled in an example that was from the Wry repo into the CEF RS. So setup for the uninitiated, CEF is the framework. That's the F. That allows one to like bundle Chromium with whatever you're working on. So CEF, Chrome Embedded Framework, is the piece that something like Electron or some of like if you're not using a web view, it's the next thing in line of not really possibilities, but the likelihood, the likely next thing in line would be using CEF. So what we've been looking at is seeing if we can get that working within the Tauri ecosystem, because the current default is the system web view, which works well on some platforms. Like on Windows, it uses WebView 2, which is based on top of Edge, which is based on top of Chromium. So you kind of already have Chromium-ish on Windows. Some of the operating systems aren't in that position. So there's potentially some benefit to optionally like switching between different like what rendering engines, I guess you could call them, depending on the platform that you're on. So we went into Wry last week, like dug into Wry, and we pulled an example out of there that it's using Wry plus Tau to open and render a window. And like that's in some ways what Tauri is basically built on top of. Now, what we're trying to do is pull that same example that we were looking at, pulling that into the CEF repo. See if you can just get it running there at least. So stop licking my green screen. Yes, you. Here, want some of my water? I don't understand. there's like a I think it's called Pika, a thing where like cats just have a fascination with like licking certain things. Not like all cats, but like some cats have this fascination with licking certain things. And this one likes to lick my green screen and anything that's like sheer. So any of my daughter's like dresses that have like a sheer fabric on the outside, or they've got like fake butterfly wings or fake fairy wings that have like it's a wire and it's a sheer fabric that you can see through the wing. she'll lick them and lick holes in them so much. Like, so she licks them so much that she licks holes in them. It's in some ways fascinating and in some ways entirely annoying. But anyways, so what we want to do is continue and see if we can get at least CEF rendering within like a tau window. There's potentially some differences in Chromium. The example that we have in CEF RS is using like basically a window that's a dev window that's bundled with the like Chromium. So that it would be like swapping from using that like dev instance to tau, and that would be kind of a decent first step if we can understand at least like what's gonna like what might need adjustments or what might need attention. We might not actually get it running, and probably today is going to be the last day that we look at CEF, at least for the near term future here. Okay, can we stop that? Yeah, you. It drives me bonkers. So if we can get it running, that would be great. If we can make any progress, I guess that would be great too. But what eventually we suspect would happen is that it kind of like becomes an option within Wry potentially. That's not how the Verso plugin is set up at the moment. But you know, all the plugins don't need to be exactly the same. I think that was there was, maybe we pull it up. There was a post. So here, let's do this. Go over this here. Boop. We want, oh, I didn't start my typing. I need the keyboard thing open to do the typing. I don't really want to skip. Sure. Okay. So, let's look at the, I think it's called the future of Wry Post. So UA made a post that basically talks like what the future expectation of Wry is. So the like within there, I think it kind of mentioned how like what the expectation is for Wry and how it will evolve, as far as and kind of like speaking to this point where we expected at some point to for Wry to become the interface where we can easily like swap out these bits. So let's take a quick peek at that, and then we'll come back to that. We'll look at the, I guess we could say like the entry points of CEF into the tau window. We'll kind of go from there. Really, Cat? Yeah, you. Come on up. Come on. We can do some petting of the kitty cat while we do some reading. All right, let's go to Wry. Do I still have Wry? Here we go. Now, where was it? That is probably the first question. It was either in discussions or issues. I don't. Oh, here it is. It's in discussions. All right. So this is. I mean, it's been a hot minute. So help a crate. So they're like, the idea is helper crate to create windows. And so this is like part of it here. Like the initial idea was Winit window and WebView library, and you can kind of see that in the interface of Tauri v1. The idea of a web view and the idea of a window were sort of synonymous, as in if you created a window, you were also creating the web view. But in v2, it's in some ways that was driven by like the state of the current crates that we were using. And it kind of it was in some ways like intended feature. I don't know if feature creep is the way to explain it, but the idea that you can have multiple web views within a single window started to evolve, which meant that coupling of window plus web view didn't really make sense anymore. And you can see that in the interface for v2, where it still feels a little bit like there's a little bit of an overlap, but it's mostly separate where you're creating a window or you're creating a web view. There, I think, is still an API that lets you do both, but it's been like rewritten to be on top of this like new expectation. We've actually mentioned this on stream a few times. There's been, I guess, an expectation that at some point we might switch back to using the Winit crate. So we forked Winit because what we wanted with that library was it didn't exist, and when it didn't at that point want to support like that feature set that we were looking for. It still isn't in a place where, so they've, with like shared handlers and the way windows are done, and it has evolved. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, this. So I think it's potentially in a state where it could switch back, but and Amr pulled out a bunch of the work into this crate called Muda. So those are like the additional features on top of what would be needed with or like the original intent behind forking Tau was that we needed these extra features. So at this point, I think Muda basically represents all those additional features, and it makes it easier for us to potentially switch back to using Winit off of Tau. But there's still some differences, and things have evolved over time, so it's not there yet. I haven't seen anything about this come back up. It doesn't seem like working through a lot of the like back end low level pieces of this is not insignificant effort. So unless there's like direct interest or like overwhelming interest in a feature, it either doesn't get implemented or just will never get implemented. And I honestly haven't really heard anything about this. I knew it was a possibility, but I think most of the interest comes from CEF and Servo. So what we've gotten since this post was written was we on stream pulled in Tony, who worked on Servo with air quotes. So we used a plugin called Tauri plugin Verso, which is on top of a crate called Verso, which is kind of becoming a browser on top of Servo. So the way that we were at the moment able to enable Servo is to use this Verso plugin. So use it all the hooks and the little extra functionality that make the DX nice come from come from Verso, and that allows us to use all the pieces that are already implemented within Servo. So that work has been coming along. What we're looking at here is CEF. So there's this initial he made this initial crate. There was a bunch of work that he put into it. And then there just wasn't I mean, in some ways I think UA got interested in Servo more and got into Verso more. So like as a personal interest thing, I think that has pulled him towards that direction. But there needed to be more support behind getting CF in a place where it was worth putting in more attention to it. So it was in some ways like this kind of proved it out, and then it has been like slowly seeing attention over the past couple of years. But Bill, who we had on the stream 2 weeks ago now, put in some additional work on top to pull it into the Tauri namespace, but then also like start to continue to push it forward. So like this has probably been one of the bigger things or bigger issues that we've had on Linux. So yeah, which is how we've pretty much communicated it, that it seems like it's going to be the biggest win specifically on, flavors of Linux because of these difficulties. I mean, potentially there might be performance reasons or edge cases or something that might make it, which might make it have more, it might make more sense on Mac in some specific cases, but I suspect Mac and Windows will generally, I anticipate that the default or the rendering engine that folks tend to use will end up being the majority of, will be in the system of view. So I think that's pretty much about what is worth pulling out of here. It's all in these are all pieces and ideas that we've reiterated on the stream and in other places, but like this is probably the post which actually like wrote down and really cemented those opinions or those feelings on how we should proceed with this. So it's if you want quote unquote the source of these original like ideas, or at least the place where they're originally written down, we would look here. We mentioned this I think when Bill came on, that it was always written, Tauri was always written with some expectation to potentially pull in something like Servo. I know a few of us have been interested in that for some time, but Servo is finally getting to the point where it actually be not only like possible but reasonable. So when we were first talking about it, it was many, many years ago, and Servo just like wasn't at the point where it even made sense to try to support it because the APIs weren't there. So until it had some level of like the feature comparison or the list of features was to a point where it would actually be usable in an app, and didn't actually make real sense to try to enable it. Obviously there's still more work to do in Servo, but it's to the point where it makes sense to be putting in that work to where the timeline that it's on, we can start working within the Tauri ecosystem at least to enable it so folks can start trying it out. All right, so all of that being said, we want to look back at these entry points. So we were looking at Tau. I think we mostly. Oh, and there's this Wanex stuff too. We were kind of looking through this list of like the structs and the functions and exports and such from CEF, and I think this is probably the one that stuck out to me the most because this looks very much like it could be that shared handler that we need or use within Wry to hook up to Tau. Yay, servo futures. Yeah. I think like functionally it's cool that we have the option and competition is neat. I think my eventual like the thing that I would love to see out of servo would be able to bundle and use servo, but only pull in the pieces that you actually care about or use directly. The fact that it's written on Rust and the fact that we have the whole like build setup within Tauri on Rust means that that could be a potential future. Still a long way off. Like just getting to the point where we can actually reasonably support it. We're still in that process, but I think that's those kind of things is what really interests me. At some point, it will be in effectively direct competition with what Chromium and CEF and the system web views can do. And at that point, it's even when it gets to feature parity, like what's the driving reason to use that? It's like the comparison of what would interest somebody to use Firefox versus Chrome or a Chromium alternative. Chrome and Chromium have kind of taken over everything and are driving everything, and everybody tends to develop on one of those, which means that like Safari and Firefox both tend to have more bugs. um, Simply because people don't test on them nearly as much. And with the like the usage metrics of those not changing much over the many years, I don't see that changing in the near future. So like even if we get servo to a place where it's at feature parity, I still think needs to be a strong reason for somebody to actually pull in and use servo. And I think potentially the middle ground of and maybe we can do some of this too as the CEF, but the middle ground of like potentially sharing pieces of that between apps or only bundling in the pieces that you actually care about or are using. Like if you're not using WebRTC, could we theoretically build a bundle that doesn't include that? Because that's both nice as a like a bundle size consideration, but also there's like security considerations there too. If you don't ever use our WebRTC and we don't bundle it, it means that that's any potential issues or vulnerabilities or paths that people could use that to and get into an app kind of disappear. So I think that's probably why it interests me the most specifically. Even just a single stable target is nice, but bringing in just what you need would be amazing. Yeah, it would be really cool. And honestly, it feels like the only potential option where we could do that. Yeah, I think that the most interesting thing that we could do with CEF would be have some sort of like shared piece or binary or like when you're using the system web view on Windows, you're sort of like building on some of those shared pieces. It's not like using shared memory per se, but it's like reusing some of that same code paths or processing. So again, as always, options will be nice. And I think specifically get this working and improve the situation in Linux will really move things forward. So, all that being said, let's see if we can. Where are we on our list? Let us recheck that off again. Reset the timer, as it were. So, entry points into Tau window. We were looking through the docs because we pulled in this example. What do we got? On the right, we have the just CEF code. So we were looking through some of the implementation pieces. But on the left, we have a like chopped up quasi version of the previous WebView setup, or excuse me, the previous setup with Wry. So this used to be Tau plus Wry, so I was using the system WebView. But what we're trying to do is like swap out the system WebView stuff to then use Tau. So here we would have event loop and window. I think both come from Tau. Event loop window, yeah. I've got to have a mind to not have these generic like star ports or whatever, if only just to make it easier to like read it and see like where these pieces are coming from. But also that's, I mean, it is an example. It is more, I think it being an example makes that more reasonable to do. But obviously I don't want to do that in every situation. So we got this, we got the builder, and this is this is all still from Wry. So with URL with drag and drop. So WebView Builder comes from Wry. Yeah. Star ports is a great name for those. So is like this would be a star port? Is that like a? Is that one of the? I've not actually heard anybody use that before. Is that like a terminology thing that's coming around in the Rust world? For those following along, Chris is much deeper into Rust than I, and has been getting into Bevy. So if you're interested in game engines, like video game engines, and Rust, check out some of Chris's videos. Right. So that like this is the piece where we need to. We have a window, and what we might need to deal with the event loop stuff too. Oh, did I? I didn't say starport, did I? Did I? No. I don't know. I tell you, I feel like Monday nights I never get great sleep. I don't know what it is. I did. Oh my. Okay. Yeah, let's say it's a coin that I turned. a coin that I termed. A term that I coined. Holy cow. So speaking of sleep, my schedule has changed a little bit. And on top of the like normal, not like poor sleep that I seem to always get on Monday nights, I mean, maybe my sleep is always just not great, and it's just more apparent when I'm talking constantly for multiple hours and mostly just listening to myself. You just flew back from AMS, and boy, are your arms tired. Are those related? The bad sleep and arms being tired? AMS is it Amsterdam? So we need the big thing is I don't know how CEF does the event loop stuff. And this is how it is set up with and works within Tau. And that is done with some expectation to have this like shared window handler. So within Is this Tau? We just looked at this window builder. So we have like the event loop and then the window from Tau, and that has like a shared window handler. So there's like a shared crate. Amsterdam, nice. That was for Rust something, right? What conference is that? I can't think of it now. I got nothing. And this is the app. So like this is app is in like from CEF. So there's a bunch of extra, and this is going to come in from the improving the DX of CEF. So some of what we're doing, going from like system web view land to Wry, and from like Wry and the Wry runtime plugins to Tauri, is like doing all this type of stuff. It needs to exist, but the user generally doesn't care about most of it, just as long as like the things render as expected. So wiring all this up and having bindings to the lower level pieces and doing it in a way which kind of sets a bunch of these defaults is nice, but we don't have that yet within CEF, at least not in a place that matches up with what we have in Wry. So we have this demo app, which is pulling in these bits. So I switched this out. This is now a Tau window, but it's doing this like CEF app. So from there we built up this demo app, and then we ended up pulling in like most of this code from there, because it's doing a bunch of this like demo browser process handler and all these like pieces that we needed. So wrap RC, what did RC mean? I know we looked at this last time. RC is, I don't remember. Demo window delegate. I don't remember what RC stands for, but that was all pieces that seemed to exist in the previous example and seemed to be something that we needed to pull in. But what we eventually want to do is like this piece here needs to be swapped out with something here. So like demo app new. I mean, we could hard code the URL, and we don't really need to deal with drag and drop handlers yet. So like in reality, I think we only want to or need to do something kind of like this. Because then we run our event loop. This event loop is tied to the window. The window is tied to the event loop. So then the event loop runs and does stuff, and then handles like exit conditions as such. So I think as long as like this app takes the window and we can tie these together within whatever shared handler we have, I think we'll be set. So I'm going to comment that out. What does this look like? If we could do something like this, and again, oh, it does actually take a window. I didn't even realize that. So there was some expectation of it being a default one, because I think this is the same example code that we had, right? Let's see, main RS. Main RS, this is the CEF simple example. That's the single example in this repo. And it's the one that we ran when we had Bill on the stream a couple weeks ago. So we do window.clone. So it does expect a window to be coming in. And then it does some arc mutex such stuff. But I think we don't need to deal with any of that. at the moment. So if we call demo app new, in theory, this could work. Rust week. The conf was Rust week. That's what it is. Okay. Yeah, no worries. I get it. So like this feels like it could be a possibility, but then we get into these bits. So I think this is all going to be something that we still need potentially. And like here where eventually we would want to allow somebody to pass in a URL, so we would need to deal with that, do some sort of builder or something. But hard coding it is fine for the moment. So I think as long as we make this code here that we've pulled in and such sets up a bunch of impls and such, as long as we get all the right squigglies to go away, we might have something that actually can build, maybe, or at least not throw a whole ton of errors when we try to build. But I don't know what. I have some expectation that CEF is built with a way that it can work with Winit. So I'm assuming that if we get it working to or allow us to set a window or pass in this window from Tau, that it could potentially also work, because all of the types could still potentially line up. But let's get there when we get there. Let's see if we can make some of these red squigglies go away. I'm gonna collapse all these areas just so we can get an idea of, I don't know what feeds into what. So where do we start fixing some of these? We have impl demo app, and it's got a new, so that defines this, and then the new function, and then we have a wrapper C, an impl RC as base, so that like this doesn't have any red squigglies. It seems like it could potentially be fine. Here we have an impl app for demo app. This is the, so like this looks like it could potentially be reasonably fine, but there's some expectation of like, we need to do this object, which eventually gets initialized, and it happens in this like wrapping stuff. So if we look at this, we pass it a window and we like set up this new app, but then we don't actually like, this isn't the thing that's actually like kicking off and running it. So here we got the build. The build would be like in some ways the trigger. So like this new works, but then we also need something to actually like initialize or get it going. And I think most of that's happening here. So we and run message loop. So like those are going to be the pieces that we might end up struggling with a little bit here. Execute process. So like even if we get this window wired up, we're defining and setting up all these impls specifically to work with like demo browser process handler struct. So we got this struct. And that is, we got an app is browser process, and where's sandbox coming from? Sandbox info. I imagine that's, yes, that's coming from CEF. You can see in the little hover thing, CEF sandbox info. So demo app has this. We swapped out this. It basically needs this as the object. Execute process gets a mutable app with the sandbox stuff and the args. This isn't a browser process, I don't think. So we would do, it needs that process type. I don't know what that's trying to do here, but I imagine that what we really care about here is that it's doing some initialization to check that something is good. But in reality, I think we mostly just need this run loop, which and then shutdown. And like this starts to get into the internal bits. So if we look at run message loop, here's the run command stuff with the args. So what's that run loop doing? I think that's probably going to be the biggest question. And I think that's what we were actually starting to get into. Yeah. So we're looking at like wrap app. It's wrapping this stuff because it has some expectation to be the like main top level function. Like it expects to be the thing handling that run loop. So this is all in bindings, source bindings, source bindings. So that might potentially be a problem, something that we need to deal with. There's some expectation of it being the thing handling and doing the run loop, which I'm not quite sure how to deal with at the moment. So I think we try to get raw browser process. I mean, I don't really care about browser process. So I think the even if we get all this stuff working, we might still end up running into issues here. So the trade bound impl app is not satisfied. So for demo app, it's expecting to have this impl. Cannot find trade impl app in this scope. So where's impl app? It's doing some importing here. So CEF, this, what did I say? The star port? Is that what I called it? What is? I'm gonna have to go back and watch like what I said exactly. Because honestly, it does sound like it could be a very nice way to explain stuff. But if I termed the coin, I want to make sure that I'm following my own terminology. Demo window delegate. So where's this impl app must be coming from this RC. If we look here, CEF bindings, pub trade impl app. So is that, it looks like it might be CEF RC. I mean, it could just be CEF implab. It doesn't look like that's doing anything either. Whoop, too many. RC. Convert param. Convert return value in RC. So what is RC? Reference counted. Trait for types. Reference counted. That's ref counted. That's what RC is, right? Hey, good to see you. It's been a while since, at least since you chatted stream, right? It's been, I think it's been a while. I don't know. I'm gonna keep going back to maybe I didn't get good sleep or something. You know, I in college, you know, you like try stuff out. If you've heard of polyphasic sleeping, I had a roommate that actually got like real into it, and I dabbled. I gotta say that in some ways it set me up for having kids. Sometimes I'll just like crash when I'm putting him to sleep, and I'll have like 2 hours of sleep, and then I'll wake up again, and then stay up for another 5 hours, and then get another like 4 hours of sleep or something. It's not always intentional, and you do what you can do, I guess. But it's amusing, if anything. Consider importing this trait. Use CEF implab. So I guess really we would just do something like this. It does seem like it comes from here. So let's just do implab RC. I'm not going to do like any of these. Oh, I said star imports, which is probably mixing up terms, but like I kind of like starport. I do kind of like, I was trying to say star imports. But I guess Rust doesn't really use the term import, does it? I do kind of like that. Cannot find. Okay, there we go. So that fixed that, and we got an RC impl. Consider importing this struct. Okay, so it comes from there. Star spaceports. The trait bound demo app CEF RCRC is not satisfied. This, I think, is where we're going to start getting into like, we're passing in a struct of a specific structure, different from what it's expecting. So we'll see how far this gets us, but we might end up having to. Change course at least a little bit here. So this, I'm guessing, is coming from this. So impl demo app. We're getting down to the fact that trait bound demo app clone is not satisfied. Do we need to have a clone? Okay, so if we look at this, there's a CEF window handle. And it actually maybe as a bit of an aside, let's look at that shared window. Shared window. Sure. Let's set that aside for the moment. We'll call that, it's not really done, but like what we were specifically talking about, we have. There is a crate, and I'm pretty certain Wry uses it, which a raw window handle. This was an important piece, and in some ways, I think is what, when it needed to allow some of these like Muda to exist. So the idea here is that it's a common interface that window creation libraries, WinIt, in this case Tau, I'm pretty sure Tau uses it, can use to easily talk with graphic libraries. So not specifically like graphics libraries, but like we have a window, we need a way to render a thing within that window. So prior to this, they were all kind of tied together, and it was hard to have something that like you could just generically give a handle to allow other options to like render. Okay, we got a bunch of stuff. Actually, we were gonna talk about that last week, and then we ran out of time because Nicola was bringing it up. But I don't want to get too distracted. So this is where's your docs? Let's look at the docs. So this has got standardized for accessing a Windows platform specific raw window handle. And then we had this, which was nope, not that. Did I click on something? Was it on this one? I don't know where that tab went, but we had that like in CEF. There was the window handle. I'm curious to see like if they're related in any way, because I think that would be the way to has display handle. Like if CEF is using this, maybe that's one of the things we can double check on. If we look at like the cargo.toml, this is the root one, so this might not be helpful, but if we look at like sys is sort of that like base level piece. It's using I mean nothing directly. I guess it kind of makes sense because it's just a lot of bindings for the most part. I have a suspicion that that's probably going to be the piece that we want to really push on. Like CEFRS as an option, I have a feeling that might be the thing to like that we'll have to work on. So there's the bindings, and we've got the example source bindings. Yeah. So I don't see any. These are like utility pieces. Download CEF, and then I think export CEF directory is just purely utility. So the things that actually matter are CEF and sys. Sys is is there an actual dependency between them? CEF, DLL, sys. Yep. So CEF RS, or I guess just CEF, depends on CEF DLL sys, and this is mostly just bindings because there's no actual dependencies here. Okay, so there's no actual dependency in this raw window handle. That might end up being the piece that we would have to work towards implementing. And that might be the piece that prevents us from really moving forward and at the moment. So like functionally, I know we talked about it on the stream with Bill a couple weeks ago. This is mostly just the bindings to the C API. I have a feeling we would want to use CEFRS anyways. So I'm going to mostly look here, I think. So we got a CEF window, CCEF. So like this CEF window, yeah, okay. So a CEF window points to CEF DLL sys. Window is a top-level window widget in the views hierarchy. By default, it will have a non-client area with the title bar icon. Okay, so like this starts to get into C, I believe. Yeah, I see a lot of like, this seems to be like the window. So I guess my expectation was that we would want to handle our own window. And then we got Tau handling the window still, CF potentially pulled in through the Wry crate, or replacing the Wry crate would then make up the base level pieces. But if it's probably going to have a lot of this already, or at least some of it. But it's not clear. Like this is the window, but like, is this dev time window or is this, like production ready? Maybe would be the way to say it. Like it clearly has a window struct, but is the expectation that this will be something we still want to replace with Tau? I think that's possibly still an open question for me. Window. So presuming that, slight distraction. I'm just curious. What is this? I guess certs, it needs to be able to handle some certs because browser Chromium checks the like cert stuff, right? Like here, when you go to, like if we click on this button, this one here, like this cert stuff, I guess. I've been doing a bunch with JWTs and certs and some work stuff, so I caught my eye. So I think from what I recall, Bill was saying that the window within CEF is mostly just a dev. It's intended to be like a dev only thing. So that being said, we probably don't care about the window specifically. And like here, there's window delegate from, and then there's a wrap result. So we possibly don't, or we possibly want to like try to avoid using some of that. So like here's the RC impl CEF browser process handler. Structure used to implement browser process callbacks. Okay. Window delegates. So it also has a new method. What's this wrap? Can we find any information on this wrap? I think that's going to be because we're doing let's see, we're doing a wrap-rc, right? Wrap-rc CEF wrap app. If we hover over this, does it give us anything? Not so much. Go to impl app. What's this? Go to RC. Okay. I think we see if we can find some information on this wrap app. I guess before we do that, let's see if we can clear a couple more of these things now that we have a little bit more of an idea. I'm going to do some more of these like direct imports to set some of these. Browser process handler. I think we could probably clear off most of these. Most of these are just like import errors, it looks like. Here's a browser view delegate. Browser window or demo window delegate. Delegate. Where is that? Doesn't seem like it's being pulled in anywhere. Where's that set? CF RC wrap browser process handler. So I suspect that we might need to try to rip out some of these bits. I think that's a top level demo client. Demo client. We might need to deal with some of this. Window create a top level, like this here. Window delegate. If we can swap out these bits. So on initialization, it's doing this like window delegation stuff. We want to instead use the window and like use that raw window handle. I think that's what we want to do. We're going to close this. I don't see anything in the raw window handle crate that looks like it would. I mean, window handle. Nothing's jumping out at me there. I think what we look at is here we got a window clone. So we have an impl app for demo app. This is doing a like. What if we don't need this? Is it going to still complain at us? Because I don't really want to. I don't think the expectation here is a clone of that window. Where's the demo client? Struct. Okay. Oh, there's a bunch more for this. Demo window delegate. Yeah, so like on like all of this. Let's look at the impl browser process handler. Can we get any information on that? Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to keep that top level one here. And let's take a look at this trait. It's got to get raw, on context initialized. So we're doing on context initialized and to get raw. Default client, default init methods. So there's some expectation of like it being initialized, right? And they're doing right now they make a new client, establish a URL, and then create the view in that window. What's this browser view create? Okay. Let us look up that. Browser view create. So it's a top level function. Client URL. Settings, extra info, request context, and delegate. The downside of like much of this seems like it's coming out of the bindings directly. I don't know if it's part of the process or if they just don't have anything documented within like the C code or whatever, but like without any examples or text or anything communicating what is this used for, it ends up requiring a lot of like existing knowledge or just searching for it. Impl browser view delegate on browser created. So I don't know if is browser in this case like the web view. Like I can make some assumptions potentially, but I have an assumption that I probably still need to use on context initialized. And I have some expectation that I might still need to use this browser view. But it isn't clear if browser in this context also includes the window. Yeah, 100% docs need examples. Yeah. And that to be clear, this isn't I'm not trying to give Bill or UA or whoever else has worked on this grief for it. We it's very much a known issue is I guess what I'm saying. Where's the link to the repository? Yeah, who's been it's mostly been Bill and UA, I think. But then we've had a few other folks make some contributions. Did it say dates in there? Not really, no. So we've had a couple people like poke around in it. Please keep doing that because any folks getting involved always helps. So I am not surprised that there's lack of a documentation because like that's where we're at with this. But like this is an indication that having that is nice. So as an eventuality, having docs would be great. But you're going to end up at some point having to read the code because there's no situation where every API is going to be 100% documented. So like that, coming back to like the DX, part of what we're doing with this and all these other libraries and crates on top of this is because we don't, like all of these APIs don't need to be implemented by somebody using Tauri. And yes, having docs at every level would be helpful, but also at some point the DX is like, I don't care how you do it, just make me a window with the thing that I care about inside of it. So like if we look at Wry, there's a few more things that are documented, but they're still not like documented to the expectation that like anybody without any prior knowledge is coming into it. There's, especially in the lower level stuff, there's some expectation that you know what some of these pieces are, and that seems to be pretty common across libraries like this. Even just a top level terminology I think would help a lot with this. because we have DOM node, cookie manager, context. Like we have a bunch of things that say like browser. CEF browser T from our okay. Used to represent a browser. When used in the browser, when used in the what? When used in the browser process, the functions of the structure may be called on any thread unless otherwise indicated. When used in the render process, the functions of the structure may only be called on the main thread. So it looks like we've got two. There's like the browser process and then the render process. I still don't know if like the thing that we're I think the thing that we care about in this instance is like window versus thing rendered within the window. And like that's our specific interest in trying to like understand what's what. It seems like with the way CF is written, those are sort of mushed together, which makes it a little bit harder to parse and understand what ties to what. So like browser view, what is browser view? A view hosting a CEF browser instance. Like this is the when people will say I don't need docs and comments because my functions document themselves. I feel like in that case, the people that say that, the docs that they write would be the docs that say what a thing is. Like why do I need to say this is a browser view if my struct is named browser view? Like you don't. I can read the struct name or the function name. It's the like what and why and how are these pieces tied together? Like that's the type of documentation that I need here. Like that plus examples seems to be the thing that like get Chrome, get browser. Like those are the pieces that are immediately valuable. I need to know in browser is in some ways kind of a generic term. What are we talking about and why does this exist and why would I need to use it? Like that. A view hosting a CEF browser instance. So like some of this might just come back to there's a potentially established terminology that I just don't know. So is a view within the window already? So is a view making a browser instance? So we have a base structure, get CF, and there's also a browser view. Okay, this will return null if the browser has not been created or has already been destroyed. A view hosting a CF browser instance. So a browser view has a browser instance. Can we go look at like what if we go to like CF? I don't even know what I would search for. CF. It's gonna Chromium. Sure, that'll work. Do they have some high level docs or something? I have a feeling it's gonna be a lot of the same tutorial. The main, okay, here we go. This is some high level terminology, which is nice. The main application process is called the browser process. Okay, I still don't know if that includes the window. Subprocesses will be created. Sure. On Windows and Linux, the same executable can be used for those. Most C processes in CF has multiple threads. Sure. Okay. execution begins in the browser process entry point function. So it initializes CEF and any OS related objects. Simple app. Well, like what is simple app? CEF simple. So this must be like pointing to the example. And like I think that's the same CEF simple that we're running basically is this, just in Rust. A simple app is responsible for handling process level callbacks. The CEF browser process handler is only called in the browser process. There's a separate CEF render process handler that is only called in the render process. So I think that's part of this, like we have the client and we've got the browser and they're doing a lot of that like same stuff. Here's a browser view. So this has a lot of the same like on window created, add child view. So I think the like in this example, we've got a sandbox switch window. This is actually a window. Arc, mutex, new, none. Window. Is arc and mutex tied to a window? Positioning. Mutex is in this model strategy called poisoning. Interesting. Args, CMD, sandbox switch is browser process window. Arc. Is arc and mutex actually tied to a window? I like recognize these, but I haven't actually needed to personally implement any of it. So like I've seen it in code, but I don't know offhand like what's the actual I think arc is more like like this kind of stuff. Sharing between thread type things. And yeah, here, see the RC documentation for more examples of reference counting in general. And that's specifically an arc. So like RC, I think is an arc are all tied to this like thread sharing type stuff. But the option window, CCF window from our docs. Struct window. How do you get this type from this? Maybe it's doing some like backwards referencing or something like that. So it's just like establishing a mutable thing. Oh, you know what? Demo app new window clone. So this is getting a new window. Okay. So it's expecting a window. So it's doing some like backwards inference, if I'm understanding it correctly. Like this is just like a like let window undefined kind of in this case. Window would be inferred from the option inner type. Everything else is right there. Yeah, I think it's basically just inferring it, right? Yeah, and I think that's what's throwing me off is that like I read this and this is just like in the JavaScript world that'd be equivalent to saying like let window be undefined. I think, or if you're in TypeScript, you could potentially say let window, colon this stuff or undefined. But you don't need to do any of that because even giving this just like a none, And the fact that you're passing it in here, it understands that this is what you're trying to do with it, which is actually really cool. Okay. So window clone, we get an execute process and we get an initialize. So this initialize is basically like kicking off this. This kicks off some stuff that does then do this window delegate. And then we do the run message loop. So I guess if you didn't use it somewhere, you get a compiler about the option type argument not being defined. That makes sense. Okay. See the general usage wiki page of the API header files for additional information on CEF app or related instances. It could be that like it's got a bunch of this in some ways like example code that you wouldn't actually use. So there's we have CEF, right? And then we have CEF DLL sys or something like that. What is it called? CEF DLL sys. CEF has some extra stuff to make it more convenient to stand stuff up. I wonder if in reality we would only actually need to use the sys pieces. If we're using Tau and we have the windowing and the run loop and all that stuff happening elsewhere, I wonder if we would just actually need to just need to use the bindings within the syscrate. But I don't know the answer to that offhand, so let's look a little bit more. Make list, sim, C++ wrapper, processes, threads, reference counting. All firmware classes implement this stuff. Coordinate systems. Like this stuff is important, but not important to what we care about. So coordinate system stuff matters for like when you're trying to render the actual thing, but we just want to implement this. We don't actually care about the internals of how it's implemented. CEF app interface provides access to process-specific callbacks. Git browser. Okay, here. So Git browser process handler returns the handler for this functionality specific to the browser process. So I think when they say browser, they don't actually mean the window piece as well. That's the vibe that I'm getting, as the youngs would say. We have a demo app. It's using CEF DLSys app. So we have like a top level reference count impl, which is referencing this top level like CEF app T, which if we hover over here, implement the structure to provide handler implementations. Methods will be called by the process and or thread indicated. So like that feels good. And then we're passing in the window, which is in this case the Tau window. So we've got the window. It takes the event loop, and then we run the event loop. So then we start to get into here. Wrap RC. So all of these, I've noticed that all of these CEF, anything within CEF DLSys is a direct binding. So the understanding that I'm getting is that CEF DLSys is pretty much just generating the bindings to those like C APIs, C header, whatever, etc. C things. And that's directly being built off of the work that they've done in CEF directly, which means that those tend to be documented or have something as far as like documentation goes. So like this
feels potentially fine. The trade bound demo app clone is not satisfied. So that is potentially an issue. Because it looks like it has some expectation of impl app is not implemented for demo app. Like I to be clear, I think we can work around this, but the clone expecting to be implemented makes me wonder if they're relying on that rather than using like a shared handler. They're instead doing a clone of window or something, which is kind of what we're seeing further down the line. Like I don't want it to clone the window. I want it to use the shared handler to a window, if that makes sense. If I'm not talking about spaceports and such. Window is an arc, right? So a clone is just a copy of the ID. Window is in the arc, yes. Yes, so it's just a clone of... So clone is just a copy of the ID of the window. Okay, so maybe that's not a problem then. And then the browser process handler uses the sum browser process handler. So maybe this is fine. When it says browser process handler, I think that might be actually the like thing rendered within the window. So I suspect that keeping this is fine. It is doing this demo process handler new self window clone. It is not cloning the window, just incrementing the shared reference count effect. Okay, that makes sense to me. So when we look at the tau window here, does this implement clone? Available monitors ID. So we have an ID, but it doesn't actually implement clone, which is most of what I think that is complaining about, right? Into raw here, use CEF RC convert param. That could be the arc implements the clone. Window probably doesn't. Okay. Wrap result. We might actually want to do... So this is a CEF RC convert return. So what is the expectation for... let's see, what do we got? We're starting to run low on time here. So we have a new, and we call app new. It's got a window. So here we're doing a implement clone for demo app. Oh, did I just not copy that over? We might be able to just copy that over. Wrap demo app. Impl clone for demo app. So there we get a window. This is a window, which would be from tau. So self window clone. Okay. But we don't have clone for tau window. So this should give us an arc mutex option window. Cannot move out of. Okay. Self window has a type window, which does not implement the copy trait. Yeah. Consider borrowing. I mean, one of the things that are potentially different is here we're doing a reference to the window, and here we're doing a window clone. I just assumed that I needed a reference to the window. I don't know if, yeah. So what do we got? Can we do, like, I wonder if we could potentially do one of something like these. Wrap result. What's wrap result do? The method is available. Trait convert return value, which provides wrap result is not implemented. Sure. Cannot move out of self window, which is behind a shared reference. Yeah. Wrap result takes ownership of the receiver, which moves. So I think that's potentially going to be the first challenge, is the ownership here. You aren't, yeah. And I guess I don't know. So in the Tau and Wry example, we do a let builder and we pass a reference to the window in the builder method for Wry, the Wry web view builder. I assume we would wanted something similar. But I don't. I wonder if Wry is doing this arc mute or the arc RC type stuff internally, and that's why you can just pass a shared reference to it here. And we're not here, so maybe we do need to do that. So if I give it, like, what if I say arc new around the window builder? Mutex new gives an option, right? So that gives us a mutex option window. So what if I wrap this whole thing in an arc? Like, is that what you're thinking? That'll give me an arc window. Build returns a result. Mismatched types. So if I do that dot clone window dot clone, expected struct this, found struct this. Okay. I'm going to switch that back to be the clone. And I don't, what is it expecting here? It's expecting arc. Yeah, an arc mutex. New, yep. And one of these, whoop. I mean, it feels closer. Still doesn't seem to like this. Mismatched types. Expected this, found this. Oh. Arc mutex option. Do I need to still do the, so it's expecting it to be, it's doing mutex new. I don't know. Because a mutex is just blocks threads and waits for the locking to become available. I don't I don't know if we need the mutex or not. It's so when we get down to here, we get into like on context initialize. So browser view create, that seems to be what we want. And then we get to this point. So we get to the like delegate demo window delegate, and that's a browser view. And here we've got the self window lock. So that's the mutex part, right? Arc and mutex are separate types that are useful when used together. Yeah, so if that function requires it, need to use it. Yeah, that makes sense. Like conceptually, I understand that piece, but the I don't think we want to be calling the run message a loop. Like this run message loop and initialize, I think that's something that we want to have happen as part of like this builder. And web view builder new. I mean, I guess that's basically what's happening here. Like that's the initialize, right? So that functionally this bit here is equivalent to like this execute process and then initialize. But the run message loop, I think we do want to have that be a tau thing. So maybe you're on to something and we keep the mutex. It's just what mutex new. Mutex new. So then that will give us this like locking mechanism, the window lock. I still don't know if I need to do the window builder, new build target. Like this feels good, I think. We're gonna have to update this type now, arc window. So this needs to be a a mutex. And like one of them. The arc lets you share the value across threads, and the mutex allows you to mutate it. If you need to mutate the window inside the arc, then you need the mutex. I don't know if I need to. That's part of the question. The so like I know the shared window handler was an important thing, in part because it allowed you to pass around that window handle. But that's like the extent of my knowledge there. So I don't know if maybe that's a good call out to take a peek directly at Wry. It is doing a so like if we look at Wry and we look at lib, that's a lot of comments, which is good, but also we're scrolling a lot. Web view attributes. I suppose like let's just search for arc. Nope. Build WK web view. I mean, some of this might be in. I'm not signed in, so I can't just search in the whole thing. I guess let's look at web view mod. So WebView 2 built on top of Windows RS Create and WebView 2, which is also Chromium-ish. So we might be able to see how this is set up. Enter WebView. Is there an arc on this? No, there is not. Lock? No, not the cargo lock. Mute. There's mutes, but no mutex. So, oh, that's a lot. Mutex. Nope. So WebKit 2, GTK sys. And if you look at like this one, this is like WebView 2 com. So I think we can, from like this window here, get the raw window handle. But I don't think that the raw window handle is going to be useful because it doesn't seem like it's actually implemented downstream in CEF RS, which might be part of what we would have to look at. Because it's doing this like window create top level, which that actually seems like something creates a new window. Like, I don't think we actually want to do this. Because I think we want Tau to have, like, we want Tau to do this piece. In which case, I don't think I need a lock. In which case, I don't think I necessarily need a mutex. But I guess we can keep that for the moment. So if we look at this, we've got mismatch types. Okay. So I think we're on the right track. I think this is going to be the important bit here is that we have to figure out how Tau handles it relative to what CEF is doing. And I don't think we need that mutex, but I think we potentially do need I think we potentially do need to do something with that raw window handle. So that raw window handle might be the thing that we need to adjust so that it expects to be able to use that. But I think we're out of time. I might end up just like poking at this on the side. I'll probably be chatting in either the Tauri Discord or in our Discord here. I guess let's drop if you're into the chatting within Discord, we've got a little one that I would love to see folks hop in and we can continue conversations. Otherwise, I've actually got a thread going in the Tauri Discord in the contributing channel. Bill and I have been talking back and forth on trying to figure out how we want to handle the release process for CEFRS. Because getting that wired up to and make it easy to update CEF will be valuable, at least eventually when this lands further upstream. But I might continue poking. So if you're interested, feel free to like drop a comment or hop in one of those Discords and
we can chat about it further. But I might keep on poking a little bit and just see if I can understand this raw window handle, and how that relates to, or how we could potentially use it in the CEF context, because I think that's the bit. We're expecting an arc mutex to be able to lock the window and then call this in at least in this example. But I think that's the window specifically that is only intended to be used for like demo purposes or in dev. But we'll keep poking at it. Next time we will, I guess, a little bit TBD. I want to catch up on some of this stuff. I would actually like to get out a couple of videos here. We've dug into a bunch of content here, which I think would be nice to package into a video that would be more concise. So we've got a couple of like streams of work that I think would be really nice to package up like that. But I do want to get, maybe that's it. Local first stuff. We're doing a bunch of local first, and then we digressed into these additional rendering options within Tauri. But I'd like to get back to that. And there is the Johannes, who was involved with Prisma. They're doing a, I guess, podcast. They qualified it as the Local First FM podcast. And they got like a meetup going on. Are we back? I think we're back. I think so. It's fine. We're almost done here. Bad weather lately makes internet not so great. We're probably I'll put it up on the schedule. We'll go through some local first stuff and that new table web page that they created, which is real neat. And we'll probably poke around in that space, and we'll do this, continue this on the side at least. So next time, I'll see you next Tuesday for some local first stuff. Hop in the Discords or drop in the comments if you're interested in pushing or helping push forward some of the CEF stuff, and we will catch you then. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.